Hey, how's it going, everybody? If you're new here, welcome in. And if you've been here before, welcome back. I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny. And today, we're talking about the CDC outbreak. And typically when we talk about, the CDC and outbreaks, we're not talking about knives. We're usually talking about something else. But don't fear, because I'm not going to be telling you to wear any masks in this video. Instead, I want to talk to you about the latest design from the Crispy Donut community, a company known for causing cheat days in the knife community, as we all attempt to spend less money and then they come out with stuff and inevitably we end up spending more money. But is this knife one that you should take a cheat day on? Should you break out your wallet and decide to spend the $250 that it will take to get this? And that price, by the way, $250 is only if you get in on the Kickstarter, which I will make sure to link down below. If you wait for the production release, you will end up spending about $50 more. At release day, these will be $300. So let's talk about whether or not you should go ahead and get in on that Kickstarter. What does your $250 hard-earned dollars get you? Well, we have a overall length of 7.5 inches. 3.25 of that is going to be the blade made entirely of CPM MagnaCut. That blade features a hollow compound grind and a vertical belt satin finish. The body is fully titanium, the backspacer is titanium, the pocket clip is a 3D milled titanium clip, and also the hardware is DLC coated titanium featuring a T10 pivot and T8 body screws. Now, because of all of that pocketed milling there on the inside, it only weighs 3.5 ounces, making this a very, very decent EDC size and EDC weight. You won't need to wear a belt to put this in your pocket. You don't have to worry about that. Is it gym short worthy? I'm not entirely sure. That is, in fact, a decision you have to make for yourself. Deployment happens in a couple different ways. First of all, we have this flipper tab, and the flipper tab works very well. The detent feels like it is actually tuned specifically for that flipper tab. What's kind of interesting to me is that it actually allows you to load up just enough to pop it open, kind of like you would if you had an automatic with a button. You just load up and it just flies out. That's great. I actually really enjoy that. Also, you have these double-sided thumb studs. So you could decide to reverse flick. You could also, of course, do a thumb flick. Or if you have arthritis, you could just do a slow roll and call it a day. Quick QC check. Let's talk about the lockup. Lockup and lockout, that is solid. That is locked up like a bank vault. That's nice. There is no lock rock that I can feel. And for the lockout, we're looking at about, I would say that's 35%. Yeah, right around there, about 35%. Is it centered? Yes, the blade is in fact centered, and there is no detent lash. The detent on here is very good. It's a ceramic detent ball, by the way. I love ceramic detents because the ceramic will wear a very nice polished groove into the tang of the blade, and the action will only continue to get better. Let me know in the comment section down below. Have you ever noticed that even if your knife is super smooth out of the box, it's never quite as smooth as it is 3 months later, and it gets there, and this one will be absolutely no different. For those of you who like lanyards, there is a very generous lanyard hole, and that lanyard hole is part of the backspacer. Thank you. Thank you for not putting a hole through the handle scales. Although it looks like you could have actually had handle scales there, they made that part of the backspacer. And that jimping that you see on the back of the handle scales is part of the backspacer as well. I really like that. The little design things make a big difference at the end of the day. How are ergos in the hands? Well, just so you know, I do wear about a size large glove. So that is to say that I have average man-sized hands. Ergos are pretty good. I'm not feeling any hot spots at all. What about in a reverse grip? No. In fact, reverse grip feels really good. So if you're going to be, jamming this into something, anything, you're not going to have any issues there. Whenever I talk about ergos for any reason, I have to talk about the jimping. And I got to tell you guys, I get tired of complaining about the lack of jimping. And I think that the CDC has heard me, because we've got jimping everywhere. Check this out. We've got it in 4 spots. And, initially you might look at that and be like, is that too much jimping? Is there a reason for that jimping? And the reason why it looks almost out of place is because we're not used to seeing jimping in sensible spots. Let me show you what I mean. First of all, we'll start with this one. The jimping near the tip. Now, your thumb may have a hard time getting there unless you've got, some gorilla hands. But if you do a choked up grip, like a pinch grip like this, it allows you to have perfect control for those fine-tuned cutting moments. So you're covered there. Also, if you like to have your thumb in a more forward advanced grip on the spine of the blade, which is typically how I like to hold my knives because it offers a really good amount of control over the spine, you've got jimping right there. And then if you just want to hold it like normal, you can actually line up your index finger and your thumb, and you still have a nice controlled grip right here, because that jimping is, well, it's on the handle scales and it's deep. That is some deep jimping, but it's toothy, but it's not uncomfortable. The issue that I typically have with really deep jimping is that it becomes uncomfortable very easily. In this case, everything was nicely knocked down and nicely chamfered over. So there's no issue with the deep jimping. It just does a good job of keeping your grip on the knife. Now, in the reverse grip, your thumb naturally caps off here, and it creates this little divot between the handle scales and the backspacer that really locks you in between the flipper tab and the butt of the handle scale. So that's fantastic. I'm really enjoying that, especially in a reverse grip. I don't have a whole lot of reason to reverse grip my knives, but you never know when you have to jab this into a tire or something. And so the ergos on here are very solid, and I'm decently impressed with that. The action is great, by the way, guys. We are, in fact, running on ceramic bearings and, as I mentioned before, ceramic detents. So what that means is that you get some very good action. If you don't use any wrist at all, will it drop shut on its own? No, but a little bit of encouragement, a tiny bit of a shake, it'll go to its home, no problem. And also with that ceramic detent, expect that action to only get smoother from there. Now, if you want it to be fantastic, they do have their very own pivot lube. And it's not just any pivot lube. This is blueberry donut scented pivot lube. So if you want your knife to work well and smell well, go ahead and consider picking some of this up. They make this here in the United States, and it is wonderful. I really enjoy it. The only issue I have with their pivot lube is that it gives me the munchies. And yeah, so if you're on a diet, maybe see if they have an unscented version. Indexing on this knife happens very, very naturally. Now, I understand not everyone, messes with their knives like this. I do, because it gives me a feel for how easy the knife is to handle overall, and it doesn't disappoint. It works really well. The sprinkles texturing on the handle scales is fantastic. Now, you might not like it. You might say, you know what? I like my sprinkles to be colorful or not at all. And in that case, they do offer an option that just has the regular stone-washed, non-milled handle scales. So you could actually get this without the sprinkles. Now, if you get a donut without the sprinkles, I don't know what to tell you. That would not be my choice. I would actually 100% go with this version, and I'll tell you why. The reason why I love this, especially for people who like to modify their knives or send their knives out to get modified by knife modders, you could actually send this out and request to have these little sprinkle textures anodized. So you could do the sprinkles and keep the stonewash texturing on here. I think that would be absolutely amazing to get some different color anodized sprinkles on there. I'm not typically a colored donut kind of guy when it comes to the aesthetic on my knives, but I think that a sprinkles ano only on those texturing pieces would be really awesome. Let me know if you agree or not. Another thing that I love is just how well that flipper tab loads up. The detent seems like it is tuned perfectly for it. The thumb studs work well, and you know, normally I am not a big flipper only kind of guy, but if this had been a flipper only, I wouldn't have had an issue because they did a great job tuning that detent and making sure that the flipper works extremely well. Another thing on my love list is just how deep that pocketed milling is. Because they also sent these other scales, we actually get to see how deep that pocketed milling is. Check that out. They went to town on that. They made sure to take out everything that you absolutely did not need for the structure and integrity of the knife, and that really helps get the weight down. Had they not done this, this knife could have been 4.5, 5 ounces, no problem, but they did, and the result is great. Something else that shows us is that is in fact a captive pivot. So while it is not single-sided, it is in fact captive. So that brings me to the one and only thing that I would change on this knife. The only criticism that I have, and keep in mind, please, this is a prototype. They do claim that this knife is going to be about 98% of what you get in the production run. So I'm not entirely sure if they plan on changing this or not, but the one thing that I would change, if I could urge them to do so, would be to make this a true single-sided captive pivot. And while it is captive, it's not exactly single-sided because you have spots for the Torx on both sides. And listen, I get it. You know, it's not like you can go in here and turn the screw because of that flat spot that we have on the lock side. But trust me, if you give anybody the opportunity, Murphy's Law says that there's going to be some idiot out there with a Torx driver cranking down on this, believing that it's probably just some really bad Loctite job, and they're going to destroy their hardware or potentially their frame cranking on that, or potentially their Torx driver. It would be much better if we had a flat pivot side right here and a donut logo on it. Like, imagine this. We have this flat piece right there. It goes right there. They engrave a donut logo on it. That would look bananas, and I would absolutely love that. Put the Torx bit on the lock side because that's what people are going to be taking apart. Eventually, the DLC will wear where people are torquing at it with the driver, and so I think that would be a really great improvement, at least aesthetically. Give me a donut on the front side, Torx on the lock side. Everybody's happy, and I have no complaints. Ultimately, I think that this is a pretty dang good deal. We got Magna Cut, full titanium build, nice milling on these handle scales, sensible jimping all around, perfect balance. I don't really have a whole lot of complaints on here, and for $250 on the Kickstarter, I do think that is one hell of an incentive to get in while you can. And again, guys, I will make sure to link that in the description down below. Go give our boys over at the CDC some love. And by the way, if you want to watch more awesome knife and EDC content, don't forget to like and subscribe and click on one of those videos that pops up next.